Next, we're going to go to the vice chair of the subcommittee, Mr. Mast from Florida. Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and each of you for your testimony today. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed reading them. Number one, I live in one of those areas, very similar issues as so many here, issues with the Corps of Engineers, issues with the infrastructure that's going on. My community, personally, it's regularly plagued by massively harmful discharges coming out of Lake Okeechobee and going out towards the east coast and west coast of Florida. They're implemented by the Corps of Engineers. Sometimes these discharges of fresh water into our saltwater estuaries are as high as 7 million gallons a minute at their peak flows. It's very devastating. We get just absolutely devastating algae blooms. And again, probably the most disconcerting part to me is that these are imposed by the federal government on us, but they're not cleaned up by the federal government. And that's one of the worst things that I could say about them. Now, one of the other things that we could say about this is just fresh water that's simply lost out to sea. And as we look at each of our areas across the country where we see some people that don't have enough water, and as was said before, some of us that have way too much water, it can become very troublesome and very frustrating to all of us. And that's just as an aside here. Now, from my vantage point, one of the best ways to ensure that water is utilized in a beneficial way instead of being wastefully discharged is for the Corps of Engineers in many of these cases to marry their flood control efforts and that mission with their ecological restoration mission that they have in so many places. For my area, it's marrying the flood control of the dikes surrounding Lake Okeechobee with the ecological restoration that's south of Lake Okeechobee that feeds into the Florida Bay and the Florida Everglades. And that means in order for them to get this done in a timely way, which hasn't happened in my area, tackling what we're talking about today, these burdensome regulatory problems, construction issues, funding delays that are just slowing the Corps of Engineers from completing projects. In my area, the Herbert Hoover Dike rehabilitation, 60-plus projects. When they don't get done, it really adds up. So what I really want to ask you all, this kind of, to me, is Exhibit A of how there can be otherwise well-intentioned rules and regulations that exist out there, but they actually end up hurting our communities and impeding environmental protection and impeding the progress of infrastructure.